My name is Bob Stewart. If you want to talk to me on Twitter or Facebook, you can find me at ActiveBob. So on Twitter, you're just going to use that little hashtag to talk to me. If you wanted to find me on Facebook and connect with me, it's facebook.com/ActiveBob. So keyword phrases, and these are going to be really important as we start writing our blog posts because we want to make sure that we're writing about things that consumers are actually out there searching for, and they're going to lead them to our blog. And so when we talk about keyword phrases, what we're really talking about is that thing they search for in Google, right? So as a consumer goes out there, they sit down at their computer, they're getting ready to try to find a piece of information about something. Our keyword phrase, or the thing that we're going to focus our blog posts on, and from our SEO class last week, we know that our keyword phrase is going to be the phrase we use in the title of our post. We know it's going to be the phrase that we repeat 3 to 5 times in the body of our post. We know it's going to be a phrase that we use for the anchor text on the first link that we put into our blog post. But what we're really thinking about as we create our posts is are these things going to actually be searched for? So I think it's really important that every time you write a blog post, the very first question you should be asking yourself is, will anyone ever search for this? And in many ways it pains me because every single day I go on Active Rain and I see content that's being created, and we're creating as a community 2,000 blog posts a day, and at any given time I can go on the blog roll and I can look on there and I can see a piece of content, and in most cases it's many pieces of content where somebody has put a lot of effort into creating the piece of content. But the problem becomes when I look at their title, and again, our title, where we use that keyword phrase is really going to kind of dictate what we're able to rank for, what the rest of our post should be about. I mean, it's that first indicator to the search engine of, hey, this is what this is about. This is what I hope you match up with a query that somebody's doing in the search engine. So as I look at some of these posts that are done on a daily basis, I think to myself, would someone ever search for this? And this should be the first thing that you're thinking about as you create a title for your blog post. Is anybody ever going to search for the title of my blog post? And so as you look here, and we just see some of I think the one on the bottom right, charming home in a wonderful community. A lot of times we want to have we're tempted to have a title on our blog that is kind of warm and fuzzy, but when we start to think of it in terms of, will anyone ever search for this, we can really start to kind of stamp out some of the bad things that we do as we create titles. Notice the Pumpkin Festival's one, that one in the middle on the left-hand side there. That one, right, they're not telling us where this Pumpkin Festival's at, right? The charming home in a wonderful community. I'm sure it's a great place there in Bellingham. We can see that from the description, but we need to give the search engines kind of the right information for them to be able to return a result for us in their, on that first page that matches the consumer's query. So that very first question we're going to ask ourselves, will anyone ever search for this? So remember this, because as we talk about, writing posts that are geared towards the search engines, not every single post we write is going to be designed to rank in the search engines. Some posts just will not, and we shouldn't think about them in those terms. Some posts will have a different purpose, right? We may be writing a post geared towards our peers. Like if you're writing a post that's talking to other members of Active Rain and you're asking for advice, or, those are posts where we don't have to necessarily think, is somebody going to, use this keyword phrase or this query in a search? If we're writing a post that's maybe geared towards, a particular client or a set of clients, maybe we've got a bunch of people that have registered recently on our website that have been looking for information about, some particular area, and we're going to push that content out to them as opposed to sit on our hands and wait for somebody to find it in the search engine. Well, maybe we don't have to necessarily think about our blog in terms of, is this post going to rank? But if our goal is to get it to rank, then we have to think about, how are they going to search, and would it be more likely that they would find our post if we kind of thought about what our keyword phrase is? And so this is from the back end of Active Rain's analytics, and these are some posts that in the last 30 days have been hit, and these are the search queries. And so you can kind of see in the darker blue there, whenever you do a Google query, Google's going to put the words of the query in dark. And so we can see like that first one, people were searching for condos for sale near Emory University. bank-owned homes for sale in Vancouver, Washington. And that was actually the phrase that somebody searched for that led them to this particular post on Active Rain. And you can see some of the different ways where people are, is it more likely they would search for, a ranch style, I can't see that portion of the screen, an oceanfront home for sale in Vero Beach, or would they search for, a beautiful oceanfront home in a great community, right? So they're using certain components of keywords, and we're going to talk about what those are that are leading them to Active Rain blog posts all day long, every day. And so we want to make sure when we get done here today that you walk away with an understanding of how to write, keyword phrases, or how to pick keyword phrases that are going to match up with the way that people search. And for joining me today, when you guys get done, we're going to give you, and it actually came out to you this morning in an email, we're going to give you 500 different ways that people have searched homes for sale or used the phrase homes for sale to find content on Active Rain. Now, you're going to have to put your thinking cap on and kind of apply it to your particular market, but it gives you a really good sample of the way that people search. And we're going to talk about that right now. So we talk about this in the SEO class, the concept of the long tail, but I want to kind of just compare and contrast the big head versus the long tail. And so the big head is going to be kind of in any one of our markets, the common phrases that are searched for in high volume. And so again, in any market, there's about 8 of these phrases that make up about 30% of the search volume. And so I'll use Seattle because that's where I'm sitting here under the gray, cloudy skies. Those are going to be phrases in Seattle like homes for sale in Seattle, Seattle real estate, condos for sale in Seattle, Seattle condos, Seattle houses, Seattle homes, right? These kind of big head phrases where any one of those phrases, Seattle real estate, gets searched for a lot. Okay, on the other side, and there's a ton of, the big head, there's a ton of competition there. Who do we generally see when you do a search like Seattle real estate or homes for sale in Seattle? We're going to see the Trulias, the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, the realestate.coms, the those big box companies that have millions of pages that they're spending millions of dollars on search engine optimization, and they're able to rank for those real generic sorts of phrases, the phrases that get searched for in high volume. On the other side, and this is where I would be encouraging you guys to focus, is going to be that long tail. And it's literally the other 99.99% of the ways that people can search for real estate in your market, where any one of those searches doesn't necessarily have a ton of volume, right? It might get searched 4 or 5 times or 8 times or 12 times, but the cumulative of all of those other ways that people search makes up a big percentage of the traffic. And there's kind of a debate on whether or not you can really focus on the long tail, but I'm here to tell you that yes, you can. I believe that you can focus content geared towards the long tail, and that's what we're going to talk about right now, okay? So just understand that as you write blog posts that are looking at the long tail, you're not necessarily going to have one post that gets 10,000 clicks a month and turns your business upside down. But what you can do is take kind of a cumulative approach where you're saying, look, I'm going to focus on a bunch of different terms out here on this long tail that get me little bits of traffic for each post, but cumulatively that can have a significant impact on our business. And one of the other things about this long tail is, look, we're able to rank out there. Okay, when we're on the long tail, we're able to write content that will get to the first page of the search engines, assuming we use some of the tactics that we talked about in the SEO class last week. Okay, the traffic that we're able to get from the long tail is going to be highly targeted, and it's going to end up getting us a consumer who's closer to actually buying something. When we had our real estate company prior to Active Rain, one of the things that we found is we looked at a set of leads from a 3-year period, and people that used a query that had a very specific geographic indicator in it, so something more specific than a city. So instead of just searching homes for sale in Seattle, they would maybe search homes for sale in Wallingford, Seattle. If they use some kind of a much more specific geographic indicator, we found that the amount of time it took for them to do the query to actually become a transaction, or we actually did it based on when they made their first offer, was about half the amount of time that the average person spends online looking at real estate. The average person will be out there for about 8 months before they actually do something. So 8 months from when they're going to buy something, they start doing queries online. As they get closer to buying, their queries become much more specific. So we found that average person who used a real specific geographic indicator, I'm going to talk about what some of those different geographic indicators might be, but that type of a person made their first offer with one of our agents in an average of 121 days. So it was half the amount of time. It was 4 months versus 8 months. And the more specific they get, the closer they are to buying, because somebody that's looking at condos in Seattle on average is going to be 8 months away from buying. Somebody that's looking at the Bravern condos for sale in Belltown, right? That person's a heck of a lot closer. They know they want to live in the Bravern. They don't just want to live in a condo somewhere in Seattle. So there's a huge benefit to us, focusing or writing content that's geared towards people who are doing these sort of long tail searches. And one of the questions that always comes up, or I think one of the common, if I didn't know anything about this, I would be sitting back there thinking, well, why don't they just use Realtor.com, or why don't they just use Zillow or Trulia? Or I think that as people get more and more familiar with Google, or there's kind of this notion out there, and maybe this is just a notion in the real estate industry, but am I seeing everything? Right? If I'm looking for something very specific, and like I go to Realtor.com and I can't search based on a particular building or something like that, people are getting more and more used to using Google to find exact answers. And if you guys use Google, and I'm sure you do, or use Yahoo or Bing or whatever it is, right? A lot of times we'll do 2 or 3 or 4 searches to really get down to that exact piece of content that I want. And so people are using Google and finding our blogs as opposed to just going to realtor.com, because they're looking for very specific things that they can't necessarily kind of weed out, even on some of those big, the Trulias, the Zillows, the realtor.coms. So there's 2 things that we need to think about when we're selecting keyword phrases, and we kind of briefly go over these in the SEO class, but we're really going to drill down on them right now, okay? There's subject matter and there's geography. And, in search in general, I mean, just about every search that's done has some component of subject matter in it, okay? As it relates to real estate, then, almost all search done in real estate has some kind of a geographical component to it. So every time we're creating a keyword phrase, we're going to think in terms of geography and subject. So the more specific our geography, the less specific our subject matter needs to be. Okay? So conversely then, the less specific our geography, the more specific our subject matter needs to be. And so what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at this. So if we want to be real general with our subject matter, and so in real estate, what kind of general subject matters can we have? Well, homes for sale, condos for sale, the term real estate, right? That's our subject matter in a real estate search. It's the stuff that doesn't involve our geography. Homes for sale, houses for sale, condos for sale, those kinds of things, okay? So if we're going to use a real generic subject matter, we need to get more specific with our geography. And so how do we do this? Okay, so the least specific we could be is at a state level. As we get a little bit lower, a county, right, city, and then we start to get real specific. And this is really where we want to be, is down here on the bottom of this slide. We want to be in that neighborhood environment where we're talking about homes for sale in a particular neighborhood. Okay, we might want to go all the way down to a subdivision, or if we're doing condos, a complex level where we're actually including in our keyword phrase the name of the specific subdivision or condo complex. Another kind of component of geography that we can use is using near something. And in the 500 homes for sale keyword phrases that we give you guys that you can look at after the class, what you're going to see is a lot of searches where people are looking for something near something. If you live in an area where there's a college, for instance, okay, people search for real estate around certain things. And so that might be, here in Seattle, for instance, we see a lot of searches for homes for sale near the Microsoft campus, homes for sale in Redmond near Microsoft, Okay, homes for sale in Everett near Boeing. If you guys have these kind of major employers in your area, especially if you're in DC or right, there's going to be search volume that involves people looking for generic subject matter, homes for sale, right, near specific schools, employers, landmarks, areas of the city that somebody might want to live in, right? So these are some of the ways that we can get more specific with the geographical component of our keyword phrase. Because again, every keyword phrase is going to have two components to it. It's going to have that subject matter component. It's going to have that geographical component. So here's just a few examples. And again, that 500 keyword phrases that we sent out to you, you're going to see all kinds of examples like this where people are looking at these very specific geographic areas with kind of a more general subject matter. And in this case, the subject matter: homes for sale, condos for sale, homes for sale, townhomes for sale, townhouses for sale, right? These are kind of the generic subject matter. And then we get real specific with our geography. So in the first instance, Carriagewood, Renton, that's a subdivision in the city of Renton. Georgetown Commons, that's the name of the condo complex in Ann Arbor, right? Homes for sale near the Microsoft campus in Redmond. And I talked about in our area, we see this all the time. We have some major employers here that always have people relocating to come work for them. And so people are looking for homes for sale near certain areas. Wallingford, Seattle would be the name of a neighborhood inside of the city of Seattle. So on one side of things, if we want to be real generic with our subject matter, we need to get much more specific with our geography. Okay, so how can we get more specific with our subject matter? So if we just wanted to write about Seattle, right, or we just wanted to write about Renton or Everett or one of the cities that we cover, then so we're going to be generic with our geography. We need to think about getting more specific potentially with our subject matter. So, at the top of this slide, we have some of the kind of generic subject matter types of searches that you would see. As we start to get more specific, we want to think about other kind of adjectives or qualifying sorts of words that we can use to make our subject matter more specific. So condos for sale under 200,000 in Seattle, right? What does my subject matter become? My subject matter becomes condos for sale under 200,000. Okay, so I'm getting a real specific subject matter and a less specific geography. All of Seattle. Think adjectives in homes, right? And there's no shortage of ways that people can describe the type of home that they want, right? I want a waterfront home, I want oceanfront, I want mountain views, okay? And then think about and in that 500 keyword phrases that I send out, you guys are going to see a lot of search queries that involve the use of people searching for specific features that they want in a home. Okay, and again, if somebody knows that they want a 3-car garage, they're probably a little bit closer to buying, right? They're just looking for something very specific than just somebody that's searching for homes for sale in Seattle. So homes for sale in Seattle with a 3-car garage, we're going to be able to rank for it. We're going to find people that are closer to actually taking action. Just a couple of examples of how these kinds of searches come together. This last one on here, homes for sale under 200,000 in Lacey. This came from when we did our rain camps, and we would go around the country and do these rain camps. We did one. The very first one we did was in Seattle, and then about 14 months later, we came back for our very last live rain camp that we did. It was in Seattle as well. And at that second one, a guy came up to me and he said, "Hey, man, I want to thank you for something that you guys talked about 14 months ago. It added 8 deals to my business in the last year." So I said, "Awesome, tell me, what did you do, or what did I say?" Because I'm not sure what I said. And he said, "I live around Joint Base Lewis McChord, and Lewis McChord is a huge military installation that used to be Fort Lewis Army Base and McChord Air Force Base, and now it's just one huge base called Joint Base Lewis McChord." And John said, "I realize that a lot of the folks that are moving into my area are first-time home buyers. Okay, they're being relocated to the base. They're looking for housing around the base, and there's a certain kind of price point where I think that people are looking for homes. And so He said, what I did is I went out and in every town or area around the base, I wrote posts of a nature like homes for sale under $200,000 in Lacey, homes for sale under $200,000 in Stillicum, homes for sale under $200,000 in Lakewood, in DuPont, in, there's about 8 little towns and cities right around the base where he just went and covered that area with blog posts of that nature. He said, I did another set of them at homes for sale under $150,000 in Lacey, in DuPont, in Stillicum. And he said, I just covered the base. I knew that if somebody was coming in, or I had this sense that if people were moving in there and they were looking for affordable housing, I might be able to capture, interested buyers who were looking for something very specific as it related to living around the base. And he said that this strategy literally led to 8 transactions last year from people finding my blog because I had highly targeted it towards, my understanding of my marketplace. And one of the questions I'm sure is going to come up, and I'll show you guys kind of a way that you can look at this stuff, is how do I know what people are searching for around my area? And one of the answers I'm going to give you, and I'll give it to you now, but I'll give it to you again in a little bit, is a lot of times this is going to be based on your own intuition, your own gut, and your own understanding of your marketplace. Because had John gone to Google Adwords keyword tool, which I'm going to show you, and said, how often is homes for sale under $200,000 in Lacey searched for? And Google said, well, not very often at all. And he had chosen not to implement that strategy. It would have been a lot of kind of missed opportunities for him. But he understood his market. He had this sense that, around the base, people were looking for these affordable housing options, and he had a chance to deliver content to them that would convince them, hey, he was the expert and was going to be able to find them a house of this nature. So another thing I hear a lot from people is, well, we don't have subdivisions or we don't have condo complexes. So like, what should I be writing about? And so one of the things that I always do with somebody that asks a question of that nature is I say, well, let's go in and look at your MLS and let's look at how people market properties on your MLS, or let's look at what fields your MLS has. Because what starts to happen is as people are out looking for homes, right, when they get really dialed into something specific that they want to find, the next time they come back to look for homes 2 weeks later or a month later, because life's kind of gotten in the way and they're really not that close to buying, but as they start to get closer, what they'll do is they'll start to look at these types of property features. So they'll look at, homes for sale with large lots, or homes for sale with, a master bedroom on the main floor, or homes for sale with, gourmet kitchen. Or so I always like to go back to the MLS and just kind of look, how are people marketing properties? Because if people are marketing properties in that fashion, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're doing it because these are desirable things in a home. Okay, so like gourmet kitchen, for instance, or sunken living rooms, or huge backyard, or whatever it is. Like, I can pull things out of the MLS and the way that agents describe properties to give me ideas about things that I could potentially be writing about in my blog. So if you're in one of these areas where you don't have subdivisions, you don't have, in fact, I had one lady who said, we don't have subdivisions. And I said, all right, well, let's go look at your MLS. And so we went in there and we started looking through her MLS, and I kept seeing, I'm just randomly pulling up properties from her IDX on her website. And I'm saying, well, what's Keystone Estates? And she goes, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's a subdivision, but nobody around here ever calls it Keystone Estates. And I said, well, why would this agent market the property as this home being in the beautiful Keystone Estates? And she said, yeah, but nobody thinks about that like that here. And I said, here's what happens. People go online, right? Let's say I find this home on Trulia, and in the description it says, homes for sale, this is a beautiful home in Keystone Estates. And they go, well, gosh, we kind of like this home, and we like this area, but nowhere on Trulia does it give me a chance to search for just houses in Keystone Estates. So what they do is they head back out to Google, and based on something they've picked up out of that listing, they will do search queries in Google like, homes for sale in Keystone Estates, Seattle, Washington. So think about, how are agents marketing the properties? And even if it's not something that like the local people think about if they were going to buy a house in that little subdivision, you still want to think about it in terms of, how are people originally finding this information? How are they identifying neighborhoods? How are they, what kinds of things do they like in a home? And a lot of times you can get information like that out of the fields and the ways that agents market property in your area. There's a couple of different ways in terms of adjectives or the types of descriptive phrases that people might use with the home. So think in terms of types of homes. Okay, so if you're in an area where there's a lot of brick homes, you might be doing homes, brick homes for sale in Raleigh, North Carolina. Names of builders. This one can be really a really good use of your time. If you have new construction that's going on, or certain builders in your area that are that people know their names, or think about writing like posts that utilize the name of the builder in them. So homes for sale by Pulte Homes in Renton, right? Where the builders out there, they're doing all kinds of offline marketing. They're trying to drive people back to their website, but how do they do it? They do radio ads, they do billboards, they do a lot of the traditional things. And what will happen is consumers will come back and they will search, Pulte Homes for sale in Renton, right, after having driven by a billboard. And if we can be on that first page, we can pick up traffic that may have otherwise, just gone to the builder's website. Think about, phrases that describe the property. So retirement homes, gated communities, equestrian properties, right? There's all kinds of these. And again, in that 500 keyword phrases that we sent out, you guys are going to see just literally 500 ways that people searched for homes for sale in the last 30 days that led back to Active Rain members' content. And so you're going to have to take that and kind of apply it to your market, right? Some of the different geographical indicators, for instance, are not going to have anything to do with your market, but if you can kind of take the way people are searching in other markets and apply it to your market, you'll have a good head start. A few things to consider. This is just a little bit of a kind of a recap from our SEO class, right? Keyword phrase in the front of your title. And I don't necessarily hit on this real hard in the SEO class, but whatever your keyword phrase is going to be, if you want to have one of those flowery descriptions, so, vibrant community, easily walkable, or something like that, make sure that you put that at the end of your title. The start of your title needs to have your keyword phrase in it. So you can have some of that other flowery stuff, but make sure that your keyword phrase gets up there in the front of your title. Generally, you're going to want to try to keep your keyword phrase under 70 characters. And the reason we do this is because the portion that displays in the search is going to be 70 characters. Google's going to cut off whatever else we have at the end and only show those first 70 characters of a keyword phrase. When you write a blog post on Active Rain and you put a title in there, once you get to 70, we kind of give you a little warning that says, hey, this might be a little long. You can still post it in that fashion. Just know that anything you post after 70 characters is not going to show up in the search result. Never target more than one keyword. And I do talk about this in the SEO class, but it's really important that you understand every single post is going to kind of be geared around one particular keyword phrase. Okay? And then we're almost always going to use geography. And the reason I say almost always is because, again, not every single post that we write is going to be, where it's designed to rank in the search engine, designed to get in front of a consumer, right? But if that is our goal, then we want to make sure that we're using some geographical component. And again, the more specific our subject matter is, the less specific we can be with our geography. But if we're going to use general subject matter, we want to really try to hone in on some specific aspect of geography. What other kinds of keyword phrases? Well, here's some other things that we see kind of on a consistent basis around, people who do a good job of driving traffic to their blog. Best neighborhoods. We see this search all the time, and there's a high volume on these sorts of searches. So these are people that, that they're maybe relocating to the area. And so if I was moving into Seattle, it's not shocking that somebody would search for, what are the best neighborhoods in Seattle? There's a blog post on Active Rain from a lady in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the thing has like 45,000 clicks on it since she originally wrote it. And it's, what are the best neighborhoods in Raleigh, North Carolina? Okay. Now, what she would do in that case is she would have written posts about a bunch of the different neighborhoods, and then she kind of takes a collective approach. So she says, okay, I've got 8 good solid posts here about these different subdivisions. Let me collect those posts together and let me write a post about the best neighborhoods. And so now she's gonna, the title is gonna be Best Neighborhoods in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, and then the content in her post is going to involve, little descriptions of each of the neighborhoods. And then if you want to really get information about each neighborhood, she's going to link back to kind of those 6 or 8 posts that she's written about some of the different neighborhoods around Raleigh. Tax information, we see all kinds of searches where people are looking for information about taxes. What are the tax rates in certain counties, or what are the tax rates in certain cities? And then people also search, a lot about loan information. So again, the neighborhood types of posts, it's a collection of neighborhood posts, right? We're gonna pool together some previous posts that we've written about, specific neighborhoods, and we can make a collection and use the content we've already created to create additional content. Some of the there's a guy in Livonia, Michigan. Again, he has a post about disputing your tax assessment, and this thing has gotten 50 or 60,000 views. Think about it. You guys get these questions all day long, or these are questions that come up as somebody's getting ready to buy a home, or right. There's all kinds of ways that we can think about writing about taxes. You guys have the loan information of the home buying programs, right? You have these different kinds of programs in your market. They're always changing a little bit, or there's always new programs. So this is subject matter, right? The House Key Opportunity Program in Seattle, right? And so we always want to kind of combine, when we're talking about just subject matter, with geography that's going to make the searcher somebody that you can do business with. Because if you're just writing these things in general, you may get a lot of traffic to it, but you really want to try to focus your content on traffic that's going to mean something to your business. And for most of us, that's going to be based on geography. Another way to kind of create content for your blog that can drive interested consumers is to think about what kind of questions people ask. And I've talked about this before, but your emails are a great source of potential content. Somebody in our SEO class last time asked, if I write an email response to somebody and then I use that in my blog post, would that be considered duplicate content? No, you should absolutely be taking, if you're getting email questions, if you're answering questions from your clients, you should definitely be putting those types of answers in the blog post. When you're thinking about keyword phrases in terms of answering somebody's question, you need to think about, how do they query to get an answer? And they will generally query based on the question. So you want to make sure that your keyword phrase involves the question that would be asked, and that your keyword phrase doesn't necessarily start with the answer. Okay, so that's an important distinction, because we were trying to match up what kind of queries they're going to be doing. So if we were, if the question was, how do I dispute my property taxes in Livonia, Michigan, right? That's the keyword phrase that we would want to use. We wouldn't want to use a keyword phrase like, this is how you dispute your property taxes in Livonia, Michigan, right? So think about, especially if you're utilizing content from an email or in answering a question, make sure that you're using, the title or that keyword phrase is based on the way they would query it, not necessarily the answer to the query. So somebody's asked this, I'm sure already, but okay, so how do I know some of the ways that people search in my particular area? And we'll look at Google keyword tool in just a second here. I really think that your instinct and your experience is best. And again, I'm going to give you 500 ways that people search homes for sale in different markets across the country. So you can take that and kind of apply it to your particular market. But like I said, we'll look at Google AdWords keyword tool here. If John, the guy whose story I told you earlier that does business around Joint Base Lewis McCord, if he had only depended on Google AdWords keyword tool, he would have possibly missed out on business, because they might have told him, look, that doesn't get searched for at all. And what that can sometimes mean is it doesn't get searched for very often. So let's go in here and take a look at Google AdWords keyword tool. And so we're in here at Google AdWords keyword tool. And if you wanted to find Google AdWords keyword tool, what you would do is you would just Google the Google AdWords keyword tool. So when I do that, it brings me this first result here, which is Google AdWords keyword tool. And I can get in here and, oh, it's going to have me sign in. And, well, let's just say I signed in. Can't remember my password right now. Okay, so this is the page that I end up on. Okay, and what I can do is I can type in a word or phrase up here at the top, and then I can ask Google, how often is this particular query done on a monthly basis? Now, there's a little bit of an issue with this because, okay, when you're logged in, they're going to give you more data than when you're not logged in. You can do these sorts of, you can ask Google not logged in. You don't have to be logged into a Google AdWords account, but if you have a Google AdWords account and you log in, they're going to give you a little bit more specific data. And so what I did is I just looked at, a bunch of the ways in the last 30 days that people have searched condos for sale. And here was one particular way, Landsbrook Village condos for sale. So that's a real specific sort of a search query. Okay, if I sold condos in this market, or I sold homes in this market, this might be something I'd be interested in ranking for, right? If somebody was looking for a Landsbrook Village condo for sale, that's a real specific sort of a query. They're going to be closer to actually buying something. I'm going to be able to get on the first page of the search engine. Okay, so I could come over to Google here, and before I ever did a blog post about this place, I could look and ask Google, how often is this particular query done? And what Google's going to tell me is it's done about 16 times a month. If I wasn't logged in, it probably wouldn't give me any data on this. Now, it used to be that Google wouldn't show search volume under 40. Okay, today they're getting down to where they're showing search volume above 10. But let's say I was going to do homes for sale. Now, what might happen here is Google might actually show us that this never gets done, right? Right here. See, they're saying, look, there's no traffic in here. Now, what this actually means is, and now I'm logged in, it gets done less than 10 times a month. But if 5 people did this every month and I showed up, number one, and that got me 1 client this year, like, would it have been worth the time to create a piece of content, right, the 30 minutes or an hour that got me 1 client this year? Well, maybe it would have. And so the reason we give you guys that 500 keyword phrases is because some of those phrases might have only gotten searched for 2, 3, 5 times a month, but the cumulative of all of those different kinds of phrases can have a substantial impact. We have to understand that Google AdWords keyword tool is a function of Google AdWords, and Google would prefer that we just abandoned this, and then instead we did stuff like this down here, Lacey, right? So we could come in here and look at these, and we see a bunch of different ways that people search, and we go, oh, wow, look, there's all this awesome traffic in here. Google wants us bidding on this traffic, right? They would prefer that we just say, we're never going to be able to rank for this because it's high, and this is a pretty generic keyword search for my market, right? This is the big head. Okay, this is where places like Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com show up. Forget about that other one. Forget about, that homes for sale in Lacey under 200,000. It doesn't get searched for. But what that really means is it just doesn't get searched for, I'm logged in, so over 10 times a month. If you didn't have a Google AdWords account and you were looking at these things, you're generally not going to see search volume under 40. Okay? But a lot of times what's going to happen is your best kind of understanding of what you should be writing about is your instinct and your experience in your local market. Okay? So you can use Google AdWords keyword tool. I would just say be careful because they could kind of steer you away from writing about long tail content that could be very valuable to your business because, again, it's getting us, we can rank for it first off, but it's getting us people who are closer to actually doing something. They're looking for very specific sorts of things.